dead.
You don't look so good.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I died.
Whoa. Struggling comedian?
No, I'm booking gigs.
Lying on his own bathroom floor.
Come on, buddy, come on, get up! I can see that it is my apartment, but it also isn't my apartment.
What's like a sublease situation?
All of this, everything you're seeing, is my subconscious.
It's very Dogville.
Thank you. Yes, that's been driving me crazy. Maybe this is why I'm here. To help you get back up there.
Maybe I'm here because you and I have unresolved business.
Go be a professional failure!
Yeah, but what would put a gash on my forehead?
Or who?
My roommate was vaguely threatening.
You think I don't know what you two are up to?
Friend of mine for years, she's a comic.
I mean, what, am I supposed to be scared? Is she like, do I need to hide?
Could you? What's going on right now?
I think if you give up here, then that's it.
That's why she's coming over here for weed in California on Valentine's Day.
I think you're on borrowed time.
Did you hear that?
What's going on?
I gotta get to the bathroom.
The bathroom?
It's where he passed out. Yeah.
Boom, there you go. That was the trailer for Me, Myself, and the Void, streaming right now on digital video on demand, Apple TV, Prime Video. Go check it out. I'm Kuya P. This is Nerds Rule the World. Joining me to talk all things Me, Myself, and the Void is the director and co-writer, Timothy Hautekiet. I hope I got the name right.
That was pretty good. You got it.
Awesome. Well, it is a pleasure to chat with you, Tim. Thank you for your time. Let's chat about this film. I had the pleasure of watching it this morning in prep. And as someone who's gone through therapy, which I think is what we need to say, because a lot of people think it's a scary thing, and has gone through, life. I felt this. I'm an empath. And so thank you for this film, along with the rest of your cast and crew. Let's start there. What did that mean for you to work and put this together as your first feature film as well?
Oh, yeah. Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for taking the time to watch. Me, Myself, and the Void came together in a time when, my co-writer and I, it was still sort of the pandemic, and, we were sort of audacious enough to think, like, maybe we could put this, like, really small movie together, because at the time, you come up, as a filmmaker, you're always advised to come up with, like, a small, contained movie. But, that's not sort of how creativity works. You tend to fall in love with a story first and then think of how to tell it. And I think this was sort of when we had that hook of, well, it's sort of, he's in the void, but he also has his earthly body and he's got to figure out and investigate how he got there. Once that sort of fell into place, we got quite excited because we thought, oh, this is that producible potential first movie. And then we got so lucky, like, we found my producing partner, Ryan Blewett, and we found the folks at Echo Bend Pictures who were excited by the idea and helped bring it to life. So yeah, I feel, very privileged to be here 3 years later talking to you and having gotten the movie together.
Definitely. Well, thank you. So I love this concept. And it's crazy how a lot of the pandemic stuff, when it's the end of the world, a lot of us as creatives found inspiration and just started putting, these stories on wax. And now we're seeing the fruits of that labor. So love to see it. I love that this is following a comedian. I have so many friends that are comedians, as artists. I think we're all the same. And that, the way we look at the world. Can we talk about, so you gleaned this idea and then focusing on comedy and just the drive that pulls us away from our loved ones, which is kind of like the part of the story that he's realizing his mistakes because of his drive and everything. Can we talk about that element a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, so in a direct sense, I similarly, I have a lot of friends who are in comedy and I really admire it. I got my early start making sort of sketch comedy on YouTube. So I did some of that, but I think the actual comedians who go out there and stand in front of a crowd, I have so much admiration for it. Like I always like to say, for me, I'm like, I don't know if I have the patience to be bad at stand-up to become good at stand-up. It's like too scary. Yeah. But then my co-writer, Nick Aldershaw, is a comedian, like goes out there, does the comedy circuit. And so it was obviously so helpful having him as a co-writer because, you know, some of those experiences and what that is like, that experience of going up and bombing and like having, you know, and having to do the hustle, you know, and I think, like you said, I think creative people fundamentally just relate to that. Like, you know, you got to keep out there, you got to kind of fake it till you make it. You have to keep honing your craft. You have to keep being busy with it. And that comes, you know, you have to kind of manifest your own career because, you know, sort of you have to kind of prove your place. But then, like you said, there's sort of a dark side to that, which is, I think if you throw yourself too much into that drive, because it's good to be ambitious and all that stuff, but I think there can be a sort of a toxic side of it, especially if you're allowing it to impact your personal relationships and you're not working through, you know, not remembering to be a human being is what I often like to think of it as. So, you know, I think we were sort of interested in that. Because I think a lot of stories about creative people trying to make it, like obviously a lot of filmmakers find themselves drawn to stories about creative people who are struggling and all that kind of stuff, right? In some ways, it's almost a cliche. Yeah. But I think often those stories end with, and then the person makes it. Like, because that's sort of almost, especially in America, that sort of feels like the story we like to tell, right? Like, it's like, and then you work really hard and you grind, and then eventually the success comes. And we were almost like, well, what if the success was working on owning your shit and becoming a better person and, you know, and doing the comedy, hopefully for the right reasons and continuing to hone it, but in a sustainable way rather than, and then he makes it big. Like, you know, and we tried to do that in lots of elements in the story, you know, like we thought, okay, he doesn't get the girl at the end. He doesn't, like, he shouldn't get Mia back, right? Like that should be a definitive, like the win in this movie is he decides to go to therapy and start trying to be a better human being in real life. And we felt like something that I hadn't quite seen in these kinds of stories as often. And so, you know, that sort of, I think, drove us.
Definitely. And I have to tell you, I thank you for that. I appreciate that because I was looking for that, you know, that quote unquote Hollywood ending, as you said, and it felt so very real and so relatable. So I love that was what the win was for himself. So thank you. Again, as somebody who's gone through it, and I read too that this was a film that you had hoped you saw 5 years ago. In your own situation. Yeah. So just beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I think I'd like to think about it as, because, you know, I think, like you said at the beginning of this, I think going to therapy by default means you have to like be willing to go and like confront things that you don't want to, right? Like it's inherently going to be uncomfortable to go and like work on parts of yourself that like it's so that I think it's a very human thing to have resistance to wanting to do it. Like the things you're vulnerable about, the places you don't want to go, almost by default are hard, right? So, you know, but like you said, dramatizing the process of somebody going from what does it look like to dramatize somebody realizing maybe I should, like, and that felt sort of like something that, you know, like you said, hopefully resonates with people and is sort of good to put out there. So yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Oh, most definitely. And I just love the concept of how you kind of portrayed all that for him to see this way and see himself in that. In regards to this cast, because I think it was pretty amazing. Got Rose Tico from Star Wars. I love Rose Tico. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just the friendship between the two friends, you know, all of that. Can you speak to your cast that you assembled for this?
Oh, absolutely. No, it's honestly the element that I am the most proud of, you know, because obviously I actually really relate to how difficult it must be for people going and talking about their films when you've made them a certain amount of time ago, you know, like it's so I really appreciate sort of, but I think something that 3 years later I'm still so proud of is my cast. I can certainly say with, you know, my co-writer and I very early in the process named the characters Chris and Jack because I was a fan of Jack DeSena and Chris Smith and their comedy work that they do online on YouTube. They have a very successful comedy channel called Chris and Jack, where they make great comedy. Like they make really great work, and I just admired them both as artists and as actors. And I deep in my soul felt like they can carry a movie. Like their banter as the kind of like buddy comedy duo going through a journey like this, I had no doubt that they'd be able to like sustain an audience's interest and carry them through the emotional as well as the funny. And then I was actually, funnily enough, Kelly was my dream choice for Mia because fun fact was I had seen she was in a show together with Elizabeth Olsen, a Facebook Watch show called Sorry for Your Loss, a couple years ago. And there's one scene in it where she shares a scene with Jack. Like, it's like a scene, they're at a party and Jack sort of flirts with her, but then like nothing sort of materializes, and that's sort of part of her story as Jules in that story, in that show. But I thought they were cute together. I thought the way they flirted together was cute. So I remember being like, what if we made them the couple who are broken up in this story? So I reached out we went through our casting directors to Kelly's team, and I fully explained, like, I was like, here's why I think you'd be great for it, and I've seen you guys together in this show, and so thrilled. She seemed to respond to the script, and then we had a call, and then I kind of got to make it with those three, and then Akilah Hughes, who plays Anna, was somebody I'd been an admirer of for a long time, so. And then the cast across the board, even the James Babson and all these other folks who came in, I just feel so blessed with the acting because, as you sort of pointed out, it's a sort of inherently contained film. Like, it's a lot of void, right? So literally the actors have to carry it. It's not like there's tons of other stuff I can distract you with, right? Like, if the actors aren't good, I think this whole film would have completely fallen apart. So I'm so thrilled and so happy to have worked with the people I got to work with.
Well, amazing job. Kudos. I wasn't familiar with Chris and Jack before this, and so now I'm like, wow, they had such great chemistry, and it was like, man, I wish I had a friend like that. I have some friends like that, but like there were some real good friends. So I love that relationship, and it really came off that way. And again, I love Kelly, and so just amazing. And Akilah Hughes, just everybody you had involved are like stars. Not already, they're on the rise, and so you love to see it. Throwing my filmmaker hat on, I'm also a filmmaker. Cool. The way this was shot and the way you kind of pulled off the void and doing everything, what was this like with this being your first feature? Were there any shots that were like really difficult, or just anything you learned as a filmmaker that you really had a lot of fun playing with, and or what you're going to do the next project? Because I have a lot of other filmmaker friends that watch what I do in these interviews.
Yeah, of course. It's funny. I think the way I often thought about it, and I think as all filmmakers can relate to, is you always need this fine line between, I've done stuff like this before and I kind of have a sense of how I'm going to do it, but we all are drawn to things we've not done before. You need a certain craziness every project you take on to be like, yeah, it's like, I'm pretty sure we can pull this off, right? Now, I think for prepping Void, the thing I was most nervous about going into it, and was the being able to clearly distinguish to the audience, when are we in the void world, when are we in a memory, when are we in the present day, which interacts with the void world. Like, there are a lot of sort of things that I thought, if we don't get this right visually, it's going to be just a very confusing mess to the audience. And luckily, between the support we had at Echo Bend, but most certainly in this department, my cinematographer, Max Smija, was incredible. Like, he was sort of also had been through more features than I'd had before. So I was very thankful to work with a cinematographer who had feature experience. Because, he was able to sort of hold my hand through some of the parts that, because as you want to do it, but you've never done it before. So you have to walk this line between knowing what your vision is, but also knowing where it helps to have people who maybe have the experience to carry you through it. I think from a visual perspective, that was my biggest concern. It was like, okay, is this all going to feel seamless? And then we were doing fun stuff that I'd similarly never done. Like, for instance, like shooting parts of there's that moment when they sort of see the void, what we call like the expanse. It's that long road that's sort of outside of his apartment. And I remember that was like an interesting example of like, okay, I've worked with VFX before, but obviously we only built a certain part of the path and then had to do like what you would call a set extension, a very minimal version of it, but a set extension, and so having Cameron's son, who was my post supervisor, who'd done more VFX than I had there, being able to tell me like, don't worry, this is going to work, So let's just surround yourself with people who can fill in the gaps and can help you sort of accomplish what you want to accomplish. I feel very, very privileged to have found the team I did.
Amazing. I just, all the things that you try to do with this, and then finding out and reading the press kit that this was your first feature. I'm like, what? Because there's just so many things that as a filmmaker, like, that's very challenging to think how, certain things, and you went for it, and I love it. You love to see it. And I'm just curious, what you're going to take from this and moving forward. And having seen this, and now that you're doing the press, you're pushing it and you're talking to people, the film's out there. What has that feedback been like for you as a creative and inspiring you for the next project?
Oh yeah, thank you so much. I think the so far people have been very, very kind, and that's of course lovely when you've worked on something for all this time. It's also interesting to read when people don't respond to something, because like there's obviously this period of time when you've had the friends and family screening where of course people are honest, but they're being kind because they're so proud of you. And then you have the festival and cast and crew screenings. And obviously now it feels like, okay, now we put it out into the world and we hopefully see if the message resonates with more people. It's also nice showing it to more people who don't, like, for instance, when you said that you'd never seen Chris and Jack, I feel like I get to say you're welcome, like, because there's more but yeah, I think, I'm also just appreciating that the process of filmmaking is so ongoing, right? Like, it's like, okay, you finish the movie and then you have the festival season, and now you have the getting it out there and pushing it now that we're truly having distributed it and putting it out there. And so you have to promote it. And, I'm sort of trying to just take every step of that as it comes and sort of appreciate, like, okay, like I'm lucky I get to promote my movie now and hear from more people and hear what they thought. And yeah, I think like any filmmaker, I think I have many things that I now have learned from this process and will hopefully carry forward into the next one. Because if I made Me, Myself, and the Void now, it would probably be a very different movie, right? Like, it's like I'm 3 years later, I've had a chance to grow and like learn certain lessons from it, and so I hope that I can just carry all the things I've seen from how audience have responded to certain moments, and take that forward into the next project.
Well, I love it. Let me throw those virtual flowers at you, my friend, because I'm an actor, filmmaker myself. The reason I'm talking to you right now is because of the pandemic. Like, you started making a film. I was like, we're not doing a lot of work. I live in the DC area right now. So let me start promoting my filmmaker friends and doing this. So I thank that for me, because now I get inspired by talking to you, another filmmaker that's, over on the West Coast. I'm over here on the East Coast. And I just, I think we need to support each other as filmmakers, and I just love to hear it, and I love to see these results, and just it's all a learning experience, and it's an inspiring experience when you love this, and I love this, and I appreciate talking to you, my friend. So let me remind everybody again. Me, Myself, and the Void is available on digital video on demand right now. Apple TV, Prime Video, go check it out. Tim, let's close this out by why should people go check out Me, Myself, and the Void?
Go watch Me, Myself, and the Void, because I hope it is a fun, entertaining buddy comedy ride with maybe something that will give you something to think about by the end of it. So hopefully there's a little something in it for everybody. There's you're gonna have a good time, you're gonna have a laugh, but you'll also be left with something, is what I hope. So there you go. Go check out Me, Myself, and the Void.
There you go, y'all. I'm gonna have the links in the description below. Go check out my man Tim. I'm co-signing this one, man. Thank you, Tim. This was great, and I can't wait to see what you're gonna do next. What I love about when I see like a new project, especially from a person, this is your first feature, dude, and I get blown away. I'm like, amazing. So I want to check you out. Please come back. Let's talk again. I want to highlight that next project and see what you're going to do. Everybody, Tim, I'm going to mess up. I'm just going to say Tim Hautekiet. It is a pleasure talking with you. Everybody, go check out Me, Myself, and the Void, available again on digital video on demand right now. I'm Kuya P. This is Nerds Rule the World.
And I will just mute myself because no one cares about me.
And you're going to go off camera too, right? Awesome.
Wow, just call me hideous, but yes.
No. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Justin. I appreciate you. And hello, Timothy. It's a pleasure to chat with you.
Pleasure to chat with you. Nice to meet you.
Definitely. Thank you. I'm going to count us in. I'm going to put the trailer right in front of our interview and do a 3, 2, 1, introduce myself, introduce you, and we'll get right into the interview.
Awesome. Sounds good.
All right, here we go. Yes, here we go. In a 1, 2, 3.